Anytime an event ends or a DLC drops and after everything returns back to normal, of course it's an interesting change to see everything go back to normal, but at that same point, it also starts to become dry rather quickly. And so therefore, we find ourselves, and myself included, often looking towards what's next. What is next up for Call of Duty World War II? Is there another event coming, or is there gonna be something dropping in the near future? And that's what we're gonna be talking about here today, because again, while we just ended up getting that Attack of the Undead update, taking it offline earlier in the week, and of course the DLC launching as well, it's also something in which, well, at the moment, I'm already yearning for something new, some more stuff to keep the game fresh, and some things to keep players engaged within the game at pretty much all times during what may be the upcoming weeks. So with that said, of course, we do have what looks to be a couple of more events on the horizon for the rest of the lifespan of Call of Duty World War II. The time frame certainly allots us enough that we end up seeing multiple more events of 3, 4, maybe even 5 weeks in duration, but when's the next one that we can see? Again, that's what we're gonna be talking about and breaking down here at this one, giving you guys some educated guesses on when you can expect the next event in Call of Duty World War II. So that said, let's jump right into it. Right now, as it stands, we have had a decent bit of content as of the past 2 weeks or so within Call of Duty World War II, but again, as we mentioned, it does get dry rather fast, and again, we have almost no hints as to what this may be. The only thing pertaining to an actual theme of an event may actually be in the case of the new DLC, because we've seen, of course, the Resistance event happen with the Resistance DLC. Blitzkrieg was kind of in part related to that of the War Machine DLC, not necessarily directly involved, but it might follow that same pattern of what we see for the DLC 3 in the general sense that it's a celebration of that launch, both on PlayStation 4 and on Xbox One and PC, and we'll talk about how that ties in terms of the timing in just a little bit, but again, we don't really have all that many hints, and it kind of follows the same pattern of that of maybe Attack of the Undead. Maybe it's a little too early to jump to those conclusions where it's gonna drop almost out of nowhere, but it is interesting that we have some basic building blocks that may indicate one coming up, but nothing in terms of actual official teases or outlets or anything like that saying anything about an event coming up. Well, that said, that's where we can start to take a look at, again, the more educational guessing perspective of it, because we end up seeing that there's a decent amount of stuff that we can use to gauge when this may actually be. Normally, we end up seeing a pattern come down to around every 2 weeks or so after an event, and then another one will pick up. Though, of course, there were different times where we didn't actually see that happen. It was a little bit earlier and a little bit later, and so for example, Resistance was 3 weeks after the end of Winter Siege, and as was Attack of the Undead in relation to the ending of Blitzkrieg. That said, though, we also ended up seeing that there may be some things on the horizon that can indicate something a little sooner than that, but that said, if we take a look at just prior knowledge, if we were to see that, a safe bet would be to say go 2 weeks after the time frame of when Attack of the Undead ended, and then we'd end up seeing the new event on maybe July 10th. That's a safe bet, but I don't know if it's the only bet, because it's possible that, again, we break tradition with something that I'll explain here in just a second. But following the logic here, just kind of breaking that down a little further, Winter Siege lasted for 3 weeks and 4 days, then 21 days or 3 weeks later, the Resistance event launched. That went for 5 weeks to celebrate the DLC. Then after that ended, 14 days later, we saw Shamrock and Awe as a shorter little event lasting 3 weeks. 14 days after Shamrock and Awe ended, we ended up seeing Blitzkrieg start up, which again, that went for 3 weeks, a little shorter of an event, and then Attack of the Undead actually lasted 4 weeks, but came 3 weeks after the Blitzkrieg event ended. So again, just following the numbers there, you can see that pattern start to build up. We have had 2 instances of 3-week intervals, but the other 2 main intervals also being 2 weeks in between also. And additionally, we haven't seen back-to-back 3-week intervals after each event, so it's possible we end up seeing 2 weeks in that safe bet once again. But one thing that does also line up then, if we were to go 2 weeks after the end of Attack of the Undead, that would actually tie in perfectly with kind of a celebration for DLC 3 once again. It's the tail end of the exclusivity at that point for PlayStation 4, and then it would tie in and coincide with the launch with Xbox One and PC more than likely if that were to happen, because again, we had 2 weeks without an event for PlayStation 4 having that exclusivity. The final 2 weeks, there's still the event in which all platforms get to celebrate this event, and then after the launch of Xbox One and PC, they still have it also on there. So each console gets it for relatively 2 weeks of an exclusive celebration for DLC, if that makes sense, where the focus is on one console set rather than another. So if you're taking the safe bet, maybe guess around for July 10th, that's when you can maybe see that. But one other hunch that's been really creeping in my mind is maybe we actually see one a little bit earlier, and this is where we come back to saying that it might break tradition, because what if we end up only taking 1 week off? What if, again, this drops out of nowhere and we end up seeing this drop this upcoming Tuesday? that's something in which we might, if that happens, see a little bit of a teaser for that in tomorrow's blog post from Sledgehammer, but there is no guarantee, of course, for this. That's something that it might be all speculation and a crazy theory, but if you take a look at what 1 week after the Attack of the Undead event takes us to, that's July 3rd. And while it doesn't apply to everyone in the world, for those of you guys that are in the States, you know that July 4th is Independence Day, the day after that Tuesday. And so therefore, what if we end up launching up an event here for that, in which it is an Independence Day themed one, because there's still a bunch of stuff that could coincide with that as well. Two of the biggest things being that I'm super looking forward to are that of the independent and the American variants for the M1 and the 1911 that have yet to be released in Call of Duty World War II. If you guys remember back a couple of months ago, there was a little bit of an exploit where you could go into, say, a private match and then also the esports modes, toggle those on and off, and you could end up seeing all the variants listed for every single weapon. Well, in those, you could end up once again seeing a lot of awesome ones, two of those being the independent and the American variants, which since those had been discovered, a lot of people, including myself, really wanted to see those released, but we've yet to see those happen. And so what better time to release those than, well, Independence Day? I think that would be absolutely awesome, and so in that sense, maybe we end up seeing something happen here with that, in the way of an event dropping on Tuesday, but is it likely? I don't know, your guess is as good as mine. So right now, the two ones that really stand out in my mind are July 3rd and July 10th, and if we're taking the safe bet, maybe July 10th more so than the 3rd. But more so than anything, I can guarantee you're gonna be seeing one sooner rather than later. And why do I say this? Because, well, actually, if you look in the game right now, there's a lot of indicators that point to new content coming, but we've just seen the launch of DLC 3, so in that sense of them being coupled with DLC 3 for at least PlayStation 4, it makes next to no sense, so the only other default option is that of a new event in which we end up seeing these things end up coming out to the general public. So when we take a look at it, some of the biggest things that you might see are we actually already know of some of the new DLC weapons we'll be getting next. We end up seeing that, of course, in the DLC 3 trailer, we saw the Delisle sniper rifle, which a lot of people thought may be coming within DLC 3 as a result, because, well, if it's in that trailer, if there was a soldier using that shown off in the new maps, well, why would it not be available to everybody? But unfortunately, that's actually not the case. We didn't see it come within DLC 3, but it is something that defaults back once again to when we see weapons usually drop, that being during events. As well, we also saw information on a new push dagger as well as the AVS-36 as it's dubbed. This is stuff that we saw initially from the paint job layers, in which, just like what we saw with Blitzkrieg a couple of months back, that was something that after the launch of DLC 2 and with the Blitzkrieg event, we saw that patch give us a lot of information for what people thought was at that point the Grenadier division, but also a bunch of different weapons thrown in the mix there, because for whatever reason, they slipped past whatever was supposed to be there, and then a couple of days later, we were actually removed from the paint job layering as well. This isn't the first time that we've seen these things given to us well ahead of schedule and when we probably shouldn't see them. But again, that's something that they were first seen there, but apparently they also were available in offline modes as well. I personally haven't tested it out, and also I probably can't put up any gameplay because while it's not released to the public, it's still covered by intellectual property rights at that point, so it would result in a copyright strike. But from what I've heard, some people were tweeting me and also posting over on Reddit and stuff about how you could actually access them in offline local modes. So while the details are a little bit sketchy here and there for how I can actually see them that I haven't checked out, they're still in the game files. They're there already. They just haven't been hit with that flick of the proverbial switch to turn them on to the public. So in that sense, they're there, they're ready to go. Then we also end up seeing some things that are, of course, new weapon variants for even the ZK, the brand new weapon for the cavalry division. That was something in which, if you took a look at it in zombies or if you took a look at it in the paint jobs, you could see 3 undiscoverable variants from that of the standard MP menu. And so those actually had some really awesome ones. My favorite of those being the checked out variant. It's an epic variant, but of course it was the more vibrant and clean cut colors on the weapon, and it looks fantastic. But again, 3 different weapon variants than that of what you saw normally from just the base ZK, as well as the Prestige 4 reward that you end up getting for that when you max out the cavalry division. So more variants are in the works there for that one and already in the game, but yet again have just yet to be hit with that proverbial switch to be made public. And so of course we do have content that right there is in front of us, makes sense for something coming very soon. Another thing that I really want to say is going to be a part of this, but I have absolutely no idea, is that of other weapon variants to be released also. Because we mentioned just a few minutes ago that of the independent and the American variants being hidden within the game files but are there in the game itself. There are other ones such as the Iron Curtain 2, which is a personal favorite of mine that players have been rooting for to come to the game for quite some time, and which now that we're now pushing into Soviet Russia with the DLC 3, especially with that of the map Stalingrad, maybe it would be a perfect time to see it fit into when this new event comes out. So maybe again, all these things add up to them coming very soon rather than a little bit later, but that's kind of where I'm at right now. So again, safe bet, I'd say July 10th, but something in the back of my mind thinks that, you know what, maybe there's a decent chance of this happening on the 3rd. I don't know, we'll see though in time. We are a very short period of time away from that, and of course, if it does come out next week, we're probably gonna have some sort of teaser and hint in tomorrow's blog post from Sledgehammer, so stick around for that. We're gonna be detailing all that, of course, for you guys tomorrow. So hopefully you guys enjoyed, hopefully you found this insightful. Let me know your thoughts in the comments down below. When do you think the next event will be within Call of Duty World War II? Is there anything in particular that you guys think will directly affect the outcome of when this may happen, or is there anything in particular that you're looking forward to with the next event? Whatever it may be, feel free to let me know your thoughts down there in the comment section down below. But that said, if you guys enjoyed the video, make sure you drop a like down below, and of course, if you guys are new to the channel, make sure you guys subscribe so you don't miss a single thing regarding Call of Duty World War II, anything in particular regarding updates, news, best class setups, events like this, tips, tricks, all that good stuff we got you covered here up on the channel. So if any of that interests you, make sure you hit that subscribe button so you don't miss a single thing. And if you guys want to follow me over on Twitter, that's the best place to get connected outside of YouTube, practically live on Twitter. So if you guys want to strike up a conversation, ask me a question, whatever it may be, link is down there in the description below. And finally, if you guys want to follow me over on Instagram as well, that link is also in the description below. So if you guys want to toss a follow and follow my life and pictures, that link is there for you guys to check out as well. All that said and out of the way though, hopefully you guys had a fantastic day. Thank you all so much for watching. Mine is an espresso. Looking forward to the next event. Take care and peace.